Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. My name is Alexander Voutsas. I'm a member of Team Metaplastes from Greece. This year, our team decided to be concerned with the theme freedom and death. This allows us to consider these two words from a sociological and philosophical point of view. This is going to hurt. To be and not to be. This is the true reality, my friend. Think of a prisoner who has been able to find a way to feel free, or, on the other hand, a wealthy person enslaved by his concern for his property, even the anxiety to expand it. Usually, his desires are identified only by their materiality, which in turn substantiates their existence, in his eyes. As long as our desires are fulfilled or we maintain the thirst to achieve them, there is a raison d'etre, a purpose to continue, even augment our lifespan. Unless we live in a suppressed environment, we do have the freedom to choose the course of action we wish to follow in our lives, the freedom to have and express our unique personality, the freedom to express an opinion and disagree with others, the freedom of having the privilege to abide by the laws and norms of the society we live in. Yet, the foremost element that allows anyone to truly be free is the absence of any fear expressed in any manner. Our biggest cause of fear is the thought of the unavoidable span of our bodies and our mind, the wear and tear of which result in our physical death. It is the angst of death rather than death itself that really consumes us most. So when a person decides to fight for a cause, accepts the consequences, and learns not to fear death, one forgets that he or she might be a slave of sorts. Once the fighting results in success, the same might not hold true for freedom. The moment someone assumes he or she is free, then there is no chance to escape. They are free after all. A utopian illusion, if there ever was one. So who else may be considered free? Well, one who is poor or has been stripped of all possessions. There will be no further interest shown by anyone to take anything else away, since there is nothing left. The victim is virtually free, since he feels no burden of ownership anymore. Freedom is another way to cry out, so what have I to lose? As long as the prisoner mentioned earlier has repented for his crime, he might stand a chance to make himself feel free, even though he will still remain incarcerated, have no possessions, no country to fight for, while religion may be questionable, not burdensome. So what is freedom? Is anybody free at any point in their lives? Every day, through our toiling, practice and repetition, experience, we are given the chance to attain perfection. Yet, no one person ever succeeds, at least in this lifetime. In art, a creator wrestles with the demons in himself during his efforts, always aspiring to reach that perfection. Telion in Greek means perfect. Once the prefix a, alpha, is added to a word, the meaning changes and thus signifies the exact opposite. Therefore, ateles means not perfect or imperfect. It is the sense of imperfection, nevertheless, that allows the creator to prolong his or her creative struggle, while the direction, path, and manner he or she decides to follow stem from his or her personal free choice. Woody Allen, a fellow curmudgeon, once said, "It's not that I'm afraid of death. I just don't want to be there when it happens." While on a more cynical note, Wilson Misner mumbles, Those who welcome death have only tried it from the ears up. Let us turn to art. A piece of art is characterized by its materiality, its representation, a witness of its time, its uniqueness, last but not least by its physical attributes. As it picks up value, monetary or other, it shall be marketed for a while, depending on how long it proves to be an object of desire. It may become one to own, cherish, or care for. When a work of art is created, it bears a sense of timeliness, which over the course of time seems to be recognized less by the memory of its materiality and more by the metaphysical memory it creates and eventually leaves behind. This metamorphosis, its new metaphysical entity, may be seen and appreciated as a monument or a symbol. When it is mentioned, one may feel the specific cultural weight it carries. Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa, for example, represents a piece of art which perfectly reflects its cultural displacement. In times past, artists had the need to create but also improve on their work. They tackled it from different points of view in hope that eventually it might reach perfection or come as close to it as possible. It also offered an incentive for them to maintain the thirst to create and temporarily detach themselves from thinking of their perishable, finite existence, which will ultimately lead to their death. Once the artwork surrenders its utility, for which it is not responsible, that may attribute it to galleries, owners, or collectors, the passing of time might augment its significance. It may become a point of reference, a punctum, as Roland Barthes coined it. The passage of time may leave a certain patina on it and transform it to a vintage work of art, enhance its uniqueness, and appreciate its value. A slow death of certain older artistic attributes may be detected in contemporary art, since the need for perfection or improvement in every unique effort has been substituted due to the way art is handled and marketed. Artists depend on galleries to promote and sell their work. Artworks are usually seen only as objects of desire by potential customers or as a means to subsistence by gallery owners. Today, higher production quotas by galleries and clientele has left artists deprived of time, which would otherwise be used to favor their possible personal artistic evolution. As a result, work ethics often reflect the motto, if it works or sells, don't mess with it. Even though we control our actions and decisions to some extent, there are components that limit, negate, or make vulnerable the integrity of our unique personality. Why? Well, by thinking we are unique and stand out, we falsely believe we can have anything we desire at any moment. If the need for constant desire constitutes an ongoing lifeline for life's journey, then its in search of aspect becomes meaningful thanks to its excitement, its unpredictability, and the experience gained, which contributes to the expansion of our memory volume. Nevertheless, the journey is neglected since it becomes a passage solely for the search of the objects of our desires. Amassing things to our collections might create the illusion of a higher self-worth, respect from our peers, and perhaps a sense of independence. Actually, the opposite occurs. We are enslaved by the concern for our possessions and miss out from that magical journey. Every time we are successful in attaining the object of our desire, we interrupt that journey. It forces us to think of a substitute desire again and start another journey which will prove interesting enough for us to go through and explore. because of our vanity. Once we identify someone as being successful in getting what they want, more often than we do especially, some of us are willing to jeopardize our unique personalities and mimic them as to attain the characteristics that supposedly will spell out success. Memory sustains emotions and knowledge. Without memory, death starts to make its presence felt. The reaction to shocking or traumatic situations and physical limitations may speed up memory deterioration. Yet one thing is for sure, that we humans are characterized by our finiteness, as Heidegger coined it, that at some point in our lives, our brain and body will cease to function, change and morph, inevitably decompose. Death may, nonetheless, show its mark while we are still physically alive. Someone who is successful in completing daily chores or carrying out their family or social roles may have given up in marriage, for example. The act of trying to delete certain bitter memories may signify the need to erase or alleviate pain. The trade-off may lead to a specific emotional death. Pain, thankfully, is a very real, disturbing feeling, an antidote to apathy or even death in a way. Think about your childhood. Try to recollect the situations where you broke out crying. The longer you cried, the more you became pleasantly accustomed to it. Didn't want to be interrupted, solaced. You enjoyed that sublime awareness of your being. In childhood, it helped you expand your lungs, while in adulthood, you are reminded that you are still alive. The Greek word nostalgia comes to mind, complex in nature, made of the words nostos, yearning to return home, and algos, pain. So nostalgia is the pain felt through the yearning to return home. The story of Ulysses reflects this perfectly. When someone is kept far away from loved ones or places for a long period of time, memory starts to dwindle. And since only memory is capable of retaining emotional balance, this may lead to its deletion, void, death again. But can death bring freedom? Well, in ancient Greece, sleep was seen as a short-term death, while death was seen as a prolonged sleep. Let us think about ourselves as spirits trapped in a physical body. We inhabit this body for a lifetime, giving us materiality as one of our characteristics. In its true sense, death severs our connection to earthly, physical, material life. No more silver lining. Our spirits will cease to be bound and to be confined to its material essence. Immediately, the word ubiquitous and the prefix omni, everywhere, are introduced to describe possible characteristics of our new state of spirit. Free at last. From an ethical point of view, death may prove to liberate, abolish, exonerate our wrongdoings, regardless of the manner by which they resulted. In Sophocles' ancient tragedy Antigone, the protagonist is faced with a dilemma to either obey the laws imposed by the city-state of Thebes and its king Creon, or abide by the godly laws, the ones that imposed respect and dignity for the dead. In her case, it was the concern for her dead brother Polynices. All is confronted initially through the agon, the contest, where the chorus, which plays an important role in Greek tragedies, sets itself against Antigone and thus becomes the precursor of her death. Antigone's death and its repercussion results in the death of many more in this tragedy. Creon is left with no heirs to succeed him, while laws and authority seem to have weakly protected his status. he finds himself enslaved by the concern for his rule and his possessions. Death takes on the role of a deus ex machina. It has honored Antigone's from values, which she has chosen to abide by. It teaches a costly lesson to the culprit Creon, but only after he has lost everything. To complete the paradigm of death seen as liberating, I shall refer to Willie Loman in Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman. In the play, Willie is identified by his wrong decisions, the fantastic world he has created and chosen to live in, as well as the neglect to his wife's support against his son's defiance, which had developed mainly because of his attitude towards them. For Willie, death proves to be the only choice left so that his wrongdoings may be absolved and that his sons may be freed from their pseudo-dependency they show towards him. Not to mention that their alibi for their failures would cease to exist. His death sets them free. They are left alone so as to become personally responsible to seek their own well-being. As freedom and death have been seen to go beyond their codependent relationship, we must remind ourselves of the gravity and consequences that are associated with the abuse of freedom. Isocrates, one of the 10 Attic orators, used a caustic quote to express his thoughts on freedom in the city-state of Athens during the Peloponnesian War, which lasted from 431 to 404 BC. He states, "Our democracy is being self-destructive because it has abused the right to freedom and equality, since it taught its citizens to consider audacity as a right, lawlessness as freedom, abrasive speech as equality, and anarchy as progress." More recently, the charismatic polymath Benjamin Franklin, one of the founding fathers of the United States, noted that those who desire to give up freedom in order to gain security will not have, nor do they deserve, either one. People forget that the price one pays for freedom is discipline, constant watch out, and responsibility. It does not come easy. In the past, powerful countries which have volunteered to aid or help liberate other, weaker nations often intended and succeeded in making them their slaves. The fact that someone has the choice and fights for freedom is a higher virtue than to proclaim that one is free. I shall complete sharing my thoughts by mentioning Caravaggio's Amor Vincit Omnia. It is a painting of Cupid, playful, very believable in its rendering. It alludes to the Giustiniani family from Genoa, which ruled the Greek island of Chios before it was captured by the Turks in 1622. The original quote was from Virgil's Ecloges X 69, Omnia vincit amor, and Nostradamus amor, which translates to, "Love conquers all, let us all yield to love." Did I scare you?